Why aren't you You should be posting your after shows on Wide Awake News.
Well, I do. Matter of fact, if you ever get around to looking at one of my recordings, you'll see that my recordings that I post on your YouTube channel are about an hour long.
Yeah, I see. I've noticed that.
And I do include the after show commentary along with the planned presentation.
You ought to break it up if it's not too much trouble. I know you have a lot. You burn up a lot of time.
Well, I've tried it both ways, but the audience seems to, at least the audience that responds to me, they seem to just like it all in one big chunk. So that's the way I've been posting it.
Well, here's why I like it, because. Well, you cut out your commercials anyway, don't you?
I do, yeah. I try to trim out the commercials. I don't want to, the people on YouTube don't need to listen to the commercials, so I try and trim those out.
Okay. Well, I was going to say that it might be easier for some if they see a 15 or 20 or 30-minute after show. They might, it might be more inclined than starting up an hour project. And imagine that your question and answer at the end are pretty interesting, and some people might. Just want to cut right to that.
Well,
I don't know.
To be honest with you, most of the time what happens is I have more material that I want to cover than I have time available on the regular broadcast. So usually when I'm doing the after show part of the program, it's, doggone it, guys, ran out of time. I got about 6-8 more items here that I really wanted to talk about. Let's get through those. But sometimes the audience does come up with a pithy comment or interesting question. So I'm looking in the chat room right now, guys. Are there any really, really, really good comments or questions that either Charlie McGrath or myself might be able to address for you? Or perhaps you might like to take a shot at me because there was some really hot item in the news that you thought I should have covered that I neglected to talk about. So
I don't know what that could be. You hit all the hot button and some of the not hot buttons.
No, I'll tell you the truth. I was running behind, so I had to skip about a half a dozen items that I always fill it with a bunch of, I love to give some good news, So usually I have at least 2 or 3 puff pieces where something.
Well, I want to hear what's your good news?
Too late, man. Too late, man. I already threw it in the pile behind me.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's waiting for the Hoover.
I don't know. I honestly, the best news I've seen in the last 48 hours anyway has been Ron Paul on RT talking about we need to get the hell out of Iraq. We need to get out of there and not go back, not send advisors, not send any personnel. Go ahead, arm the Turks or arm the Kurds to the north. Huh?
Yeah, definitely arm the Kurds.
Arm the Kurds and get the hell out of there. Yeah. It's the only way that we can assure that we're not going to be furtherly involved.
You got to remember, we made a deal with the Kurds back, when they helped us kick Saddam out. We were supposed to give Kurd, their piece of the action. They were supposed to have their own independent Kurdistan, way back when, and we screwed them over big time anyway.
Yeah, and they've developed that. I mean, they have a government that's elected by the people. They have lights, they have power, they have education. They don't abuse their women. They don't abuse different religious minorities. Arm them and get out of the way. They can defend themselves against a bunch of ISIS thugs. I mean, they can do it.
Well, the problem is they have territorial claims on Turkey. So if we give them a whole bunch of weapons, we're liable to have, ISIS Part 2 in the form of the Kurds, trying to slice off a chunk of Turkey to create a greater Kurdistan. So see, that's always been it's tricky when you start dealing with geopolitics. I mean, we were the ones who trained and armed this, Islamic State bunch. I mean, we were the ones who got them into the game, in theory, to help us kick out Assad. So, right. They're our boys until they decided that, there were greener pastures in Iraq than there was in Syria. And they started.
How does it make you feel? Like this Sunday, I sat and watched all the weekend news shows, and John McCain was everywhere talking about, we're not doing enough. Airstrikes and humanitarian drops, they're just not enough.
I agree with Mike Rivero. Put John McCain in a pink and purple jumpsuit. Give him a parachute and an M16. Call the Iraqis ahead of time. Say, hey, we're John McCain's coming over to kick you guys' ass, and we'll just airdrop him on in there. John, you go for it. You go for it, boy. More power to you.
I'm so sick of that joker. He would have us. He would have us invading Russia.
And here's the kicker: Hillary Clinton's on board with it.
Now, sure, she's got to run for president in 2 years.
Yeah. So we got. It doesn't matter whether you vote for a Democrat or a Republican. You're going to have Iraq Part 3.
Yeah. So I think we're both in agreement in this. There's 700 U.S. troops there now. They've announced 150 more special forces or observers or whatever you want. Now, Obama says they're not, no more combat troops. I mean, give me a break. It's all combat in this region that we've destabilized. Gary, are we done? This is such a stupid question. Will we see boots on the ground again?
We've already got boots on the ground. How many advisors do we have in there now? See, they send in a few military advisors. It's going to be just like Vietnam. They send in a few military advisors, and then, we got to have some airstrike to protect our military advisors. So then they send in the airstrikes. We're seeing the airstrikes now. Now, of course, you can't really hurt these Islamic State guys with airstrikes because, they don't give you a stationary target. They're moving around. So we send in a few more military advisors. Oh, the military advisors are coming in under fire. We need a Marine contingent in there to protect our military advisors.
Wasn't there an impetus, though? Wasn't there a false flag event that led us to literally, instead of being just advisors in Vietnam, wasn't there a false flag event that led to the expansion of hostility and, 500,000 troops at one point?
Well, yeah. After the Tonkin incident, we sent 50,000 troops into Vietnam. But we already had about 5,000 advisors and a whole bunch of CIA in there already.
Yeah. And, so you look at the fact that the war in Iraq is incredibly unpopular in the United States. The people, sheeple as they may be, but they are war weary. So, Gary, you just laid it out. You have advisors on the ground, and I'm going to say it's 1,000. Just doing a quick...
I don't think it's quite that many, but yeah, okay, round numbers, 1,000. I think last number I saw was we had 200 there now, and they had another 500 ready to go. So I don't think we're quite at 1,000 yet.
I thought it was 700
yeah.
total personnel at the beginning.
But now, see, they're going to need a Marine contingent to protect them, aren't they? So now you're going to send in 1,000 Marines to protect them.
Well, the 700 included Marines to protect advisors and personnel in Baghdad. So it's not all.
Now you got to have some armored Humvees and a couple of Abrams, don't you? And at least a few Apache helicopters.
Yes, because ISIS doesn't have enough of them already.
That's right.
From when they. So my point is this, though. My point is this. You have the exact same roadmap as Vietnam. You have advisors on the ground. You have these airstrikes to protect the advisors. Then you have a false flag event. And then you have before the false flag event, you have a nation that is not wanting to get into another conflict after Korea. And you have a false flag event that opened up the public to go ahead and support initially the actions inside of Vietnam. So what does that tell me? That tells me, America, you better be on the lookout. You better be wary. You better be on guard because there's a false flag coming. And it's going to be pinned to ISIS. I don't know if it's going to be, it could be in England, it could be in the United States, it could be, in Baghdad, the butchering of a bunch of U.S. personnel there. But you could be rest assured of this, that there's a big event coming that will pave the way. Because they're not going to send 10,000. They're not going to surge 10,000 to battle ISIS without that happening. So be rest assured, it's coming.
Now here's the kicker. Now we talked earlier about the problems they're having in Missouri, over that young fellow got killed, and how they're burning down their own neighborhood to do that. Now, now take that upscale to the national stage, and think about this. Now we've got this ISIS outfit, and we got the Islamic Brotherhood making all the trouble in Egypt, and of course the craziness that's going on. I don't even know who's in charge of Libya this week. It changes so often; it's hard for me to keep track of who the players are.
That would be ExxonMobil.
ExxonMobil, well, yeah, probably, or BP one. I'm not sure which, but it doesn't seem to matter. But the problem is, you got all this Muslim on Muslim violence going on, kind of like you got this black on black violence going on in these inner city neighborhoods here in the States. Now, it just it always kind of puzzles me that if they're going to have that much energy and that much anger, why don't these guys just go kick Israel's ass? I mean, they're Israel's the one that everybody thinks is the how come they're kicking each other's ass? Why don't they go kick Israel's ass?
Who's kicking whose ass here?
Well, you got ISIS kicking they got the Sunnis against the Shiites and the Kurds, and they're all just fussing and fighting each other. But they all seem to think that these guys over here in what should be Palestine is the bad guy. Why don't they go kick their ass? Why are they kicking each other's ass?
They would be wiped out instantaneously. They have absolutely zero chance against Israel. They are a modern. One of the strongest militaries on this planet, both conventionally and nuclear.
Well, I don't know. A bunch of guys in black pajamas with bicycles kicked our ass in Vietnam.
Well, a bunch of ragtag wannabe ISIS or wannabe Muslim fighters, jihadists, kicked us out of Iraq too without a victory. So, I mean, the counterinsurgencies and guerrilla warfare certainly has its place, and I think you see that in Israel. But Israel deals with it in a whole different way than we do. I mean, they don't F around, Gary Hendershot. You kill one Israeli, I'm sorry, you're losing a city block and everybody that's in it. And I'm not condoning that or complimenting them on their killing prowess. It is just what it is. 49, or what was it, 60 Israeli soldiers killed in this last operation, and over 2,000 Palestinians, and the bulk majority of them are
civilians.
Not.
They didn't get hardly any of the fighters.
No, fighters aren't there.
The fighters were on the move. They weren't anywhere near the power station or the school or the hospital or the.
No, but I think it's Israel's way of look. They're never going to come out and say, "You kill one of us, we're going to kill 100 of you." They're never going to say that, but they do it, and I think that's. I'm not commending it. I'm not condoning it or saying that it. This is the way they should do it, but I'm saying it's effective, and I'm saying it's what they do every single time that these groups decide they're going to go ahead and pull some kind of operation against Israel.
So what do you think? I mean, is this ISIS outfit? I mean, are they the new Osama bin Laden? I mean, do we have the new boogeyman that we got to hunt? We got to check under our bed every night, make sure old ISIS ain't hiding under there, right?
Yes, you have ISIS, who is this massive group, thousands and thousands, and from all over the world.
But there is a guy in particular who looks mysteriously like Eric Lovely. Named Baghdadi, who they've put a face on it, so this is the new Osama bin Laden.
It even gets deeper than that, though. Huh? Baghdadi, Baghdadi, who spent 4 years in U.S. custody, and then was released, and now he's the new Osama bin Laden, and he's in charge of thousands and thousands of jihadists. And I will say this right now, even if I catch him crap for it. Most of these Bedouins who turned Islamist who turned jihadist, I can understand their plight. They come from a region of the world that has been literally, it's like taking a shovel, shoving it in the topsoil, picking it up and flipping it upside down. That's what's happened to a region of the world. When you have family members, every family has family members and friends and loved ones who've been butchered and murdered at the hands of the West. It would take half that for an American to pick up his AR and go to work. So, but anyway, I digress. You have a region of the world that's been turned upside down, and then Gary, check this out. They arm it. We arm it to the hilt. We arm it to the hilt with American weaponry, and we just leave it there and walk away. Now you have
fun, boys.
Yeah, have fun, have a good time. Not only that, I can walk. I live in Bozeman, Montana, a fairly affluent town. Yet I can walk 30 minutes away and find, a homeless class that wasn't there in 2007. And yet we spend billions and billions of dollars supporting groups like the Al-Nusra Front in Syria because they are fighting against a former U.S.-backed dictator in Assad. And we decide we're going to overthrow him, Arab Spring, which is all about destabilizing this region of the world, which is all about gaining access to their energy resources. So we're going to support and back Al-Nusra Front, and we're going to give them weaponry, give them money, even though they are Al-Qaeda, another U.S. creation, just so we can have a continuation of violence and a continuation of war inside the Middle East. So Syria, Iraq, Iran is the only player in this that has managed to hold their stuff together, protect their borders, and stay out of conflict. If anybody deserves, Obama got, when he just elected, the Nobel Peace Prize, it should be a freaking Iran that gets it, because they've managed to stave off any kind of hostility and war and any kind of terrorist activity. They've managed to...
Even under considerable provocation.
Absolutely. I almost dropped the F-bomb there. Absolutely.
Well, we are in the after show. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm still not going to do it. I try not to.
Well, I tell you what, I'm not seeing any hot items coming. Well, I did see a couple. I didn't realize that Lucille Ball had died, 89 years old. So, we lost Robin Williams. Apparently, Robin Williams apparently offed himself. I heard some weird...
Oh, he did. He hung himself.
Well, I heard some weird thing that it was one of these autoerotic asphyxia things. I don't know. I
haven't heard that. I've heard that.
What the guy's doing in his own bedroom, I don't care. It's a shame he hung himself doing it. But it's Lauren.
And I hope this doesn't sound supportive of Hollywood, but I liked Robin Williams. I liked every movie he was ever in. I thought he was a good actor. I thought he was a great comedian. And it sucks to see him go. And I don't have anything New World Order.
Well, there's not much New World Order to that one. It was apparently it's Lauren Bacall. I remember, she used to be Humphrey Bogart's main squeeze.
Correct.
She was a babe back in the day.
Oh yeah.
But
they all are back in the day.
Also had a question. I started out the show. The part that I think did not get aired on Rense was my bit earlier about the global warming thing. I was mentioning how, here in Northern Virginia, we're already starting to see the leaves change. And at middle of August, it's usually like 100 degrees here in Northern Virginia, and the air is so humid. You could swim through the air. And we've had these fall-like days with beautiful temperatures in the low 80s with very low humidity. It rained a little bit today, but it's not too bad. And and we're seeing the leaves on the trees already starting to turn, something that we normally do not see until late October. So as far as climate change, I mentioned to the audience, there's definitely something weird with the climate here. But I argue the human caused aspect. Because what we've got right now is we've got a very low power output from the sun. It's like somebody took the dimmer switch and turned it down to extremely dim. The sun is not giving off as much energy as we have been accustomed to having.
Is that a fact? I mean,
it is a fact. There are no sunspots. The surface of the sun is absolutely, smooth as a baby's behind. It ain't got no sunspots, and the output from the sun is much lower right now than we've seen in a long time.
What would happen if it just shut off, Gary?
Well, back in
we'd be dead in how long?
About 8 minutes. Well, actually, we'd probably last longer now. We would probably last, as long as the
MREs ran out.
As long as our MREs and food, as long as we had MREs and food to eat, we'd go.
It would get cold, really fast.
It would get really cold, really fast.
Yeah. I live 90 minutes from Yellowstone. So I might go down along with thousands of others and try to, in an emergency,
camp out next to a super volcano.
Yeah, try to figure out how to harness some of the geothermal energy coming out of Old Faithful.
And strangely enough, there would be pockets of survivors who just happen to be in areas like that who'd keep going for quite some time. But without the energy of the sun, I mean, obviously
going all different directions. Sorry,
all the plants are going to die. The plankton in the oceans are going to die. So the oxygen in the atmosphere will eventually become depleted. I mean, eventually, yeah, it would be a death sentence. I mean, how long would we last? I don't know. A lot of people would die within a matter of days.
Yeah.
I would say, the planet Earth would be a lifeless rock, certainly within a matter of a couple of years. I can't imagine it lasting more than a couple of years.
You might have the deep underground military bases kind of hanging out.
Yeah, those boys,
If they could tap into...
If they really do have a base on the backside of the moon, those boys might keep going as long as the cores last. I don't know. But resupply is going to be a bear.
Well, yeah, let's see. You could tap into geothermal to create energy. You could use
or you use nuclear.
You could use nuclear, and you could use fluorescent, or you could use underground lighting to grow crops, and that would be your big thing. I mean, I think water would be water.
Water be easy. Water is easy.
Yeah, water's easy.
Water's everywhere. Everywhere in this solar system we've looked, we've found water, even on the moon.
And even though the Earth is going to freeze over to a mile thick, that you're still going to have springs, aquifers that you could supply yourself with water. So I think food, you tap into geothermal and try to figure out how. The only thing at that point would be trying to figure out how to keep yourself in those UV rays, light bulbs, to grow some kind of food. And if there is DUMBs, deep underground military bases, they have years worth of provisions, including a seed vault.
But do they have a manufacturing capability so they can continue to replace failed components? Because we're talking about the survival of the human race from now into ad infinitum. They would have to live underground.
The good news is
they could never again inhabit the surface of the Earth.
That's right. The surface would be no bueno. I mean, you'd have expeditions up there, but the good news is you're deep underground, so all the mineral and the resources that we pull from the Earth now, we can assume that you would either have expeditions into the frozen wasteland, which used to be humanity, so you can urban mine some of the technology or some of the raw materials that you need. Why are we getting into this topic? It's kind of fun.
It was a topic that I started out with this morning, and I was asked if there was any indication that solar activity was starting to pick up again. And no, solar activity has been down for about 3 months now, and the longest recorded period ran for, depending on whose argument you listen to, either ran for 100 years or 200 years. It was referred to as the Maunder minimum. It was a period of really weak output from the sun. That happened, back in the late Renaissance period.
Is that the mini ice age period?
That was the period referred to as the mini ice age. It kind of let up about the time of the American Revolution. It was starting to warm back up again. But yeah, that was the period of the Maunder minimum, and we just had the sun just quit giving out for a while there, for like 100 or 200 years, and for all I know, we may be entering another period like that where we're just going to have to make do with a lot less output from the sun. For all I know, it could last 100 years. Then again, it might pick back up again. Next week. You just never know.
Even though with that, I mean, the output of it now being not what it was, months ago, or let's say we go into this trend, doesn't mean the whole world freezes over. It just means that suddenly you have a lot of frost in Kentucky.
Well, yeah, you get early fall like I'm getting here. I'm normally here in Northern Virginia. We don't see the leaves on the trees changing color until October. Late September to mid October is when we start seeing the trees change their foliage. We're already starting to see the foliage changing, and it's only mid August. So yeah, I mean, there's some weird stuff. Birds are starting to flock, like they're getting ready to migrate.
Yeah.
Seems a little early for that,
Man, it's weird out here in the West. There's a lot of fires. There's a lot of heat. I mean, we've been 90 for the last several weeks in a row, which is pretty unusual for us. And I don't know if it has Yeah, I think it's just, it isn't unheard of. So I'm not attributing it to any kind of global warming or climate change or sun energy production one way or the other.
Well, but the fact is, I'm a firm believer that climate change is a reality. Okay, climate change exists.
Absolutely, it does, because you won't have ice ages if it didn't.
Yeah, I mean, you only have to be a modest student of history to understand that the climate changes on the Earth very, very dramatically, and sometimes in very short periods of time. Where I get a little, fixated about it is, well, if you, Charlie McGrath, pay twice as much for gasoline as you're paying tomorrow, that will solve the output of the sun.
Have it.
Yeah, I mean, if you pay a carbon tax to Al Gore, that's going to solve all the climate problems.
Yeah.
If you modify your lifestyle, if instead of driving an SUV, if you drive a little bitty electric car, that is going to solve the solar output issue. No, come on, get real, people. All the it's like anything else. They are using a real scenario to scare you into giving them more of your money. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, no, I completely concur with that. And even if you listen to the most dyed-in-the-wool human climate change advocates, where humanity is affecting the planet and driving up the temperature, every single one of them, if you ask them the question, will the planet experience another ice age regardless of man's efforts to thwart it by pumping out carbon? Every single one of them will say, yes, we will see another ice age. We'll see it freezing over the planet. It's inevitable. Inevitable. It's unavoidable. So when you understand that reality and you think of the planet in 100,000-year chunks rather than 100-year chunks, then you realize that, regardless of what we do, regardless of how much money we pay to Al Gore, we're going to have climate change. It's going to get hotter. It's going to get colder. It's going to get hotter. It's going to get colder. That doesn't mean that humanity doesn't have an impact on it. All you have to do is look at any major urban center and see that. You could see that in the winter. It's 10 degrees warmer there than it is out in the suburbs. So I'm not saying that man cannot have effect on the climate. I am saying
localized. You can have a localized impact. Where a lot of people get together and they all have a campfire. Yeah, guess what?
Yeah.
That particular area gets a little warmer.
Yeah,
than the
and I can also say this: New York City will be under a mile of ice again because it's happened before. It's going to happen again, and it'll happen in relatively short time. Probably within 100,000 years, it'll happen to the whole East Coast. All the way down to probably about where you are, Gary, will be considered Arctic.
Last time the glaciers got as far south as Pennsylvania and little pieces of Maryland, didn't quite make it to Northern Virginia. But I can tell you that we were in the frost belt.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you would have your weather would probably be like Yellowknife in the Northwest Territory.
Yeah,
where you're you have a summer and everything thaws, but you have a hellacious winter and, it's below zero. Where I'm living now in Montana is going to be covered in 100 feet or in a mile of ice.
Probably.
It's just the way it is. It's done it time and time again. That's how we get the landscape that we have. It's how the Earth operates. So us freaking out and thinking that we can somehow...
slide Al Gore a few Benjamins.
Yeah, we'll fix a problem is ludicrous.
That'll fix it.
It's ludicrous, yeah.
Well, Charlie, I appreciate you spending this time with me, but I tell you, it's about time for me to bag it for the evening. Did you have any last pearls of wisdom that you would like to grace our audience with?
Eye on everybody. Keep your eye on Europe. That is where the two last major global wars that killed hundreds of million people started. It's where the next one's going to start again. I'm not saying forget about the Middle East, North Africa, Israel, Gaza, and all that. But these areas are destabilized. They do not have the capacity to destroy life on Earth as we know it. Keep your eyes on the prize. The global economy is in decline. There is inevitably going to be a spark that leads to global war again. And I'm not talking the global war on terror, where there's wars and factions and and killings in the thousands. I'm talking global war with millions, maybe billions of people. Keep your eyes on Europe. That's my.
I don't know, Charlie. I was really trying to wrap this up, but you got me off on another tangent now.
Go ahead.
And I'm looking at it, and I think that both Putin and the Obamanites really don't want a shooting war just yet. So I think I think the most likely scenario is that there'll be some kind of a false flag where we take a whack, and then there'll be a false flag where the Russians take a whack, and we'll both be eyeball to eyeball pointing nukes at each other. But nobody will really. It'll be another Cold War scenario where because I think
Perhaps.
there are still assets in the world that these powers to be, or that want to be, or that think they are, or whatever. I think they want to do a little bit more raping, pillaging, and plundering before they really burn it all down.
Well, Gary, I'm not going to argue with it because it could be. I mean, you talk about time frames, and it could be a decade, it could be 2 decades. I don't know. I do know that Neville Chamberlain thought when he waved his piece of paper around, promising peace in our time, that
it was done.
It was a done deal. There was no war coming. It was finished, and within 3 years, the whole planet was in some faction of war, and millions and millions and millions of people were dead. It could, Gary. If I woke up tomorrow morning and I read that that Russian convoy comes under attack, Russia moves into eastern Ukraine, I would not for 1 second be surprised. So it could happen.
Could do it. Russia sends a humanitarian mission in there to try and help those poor folks out a little bit, basically to keep them home so that they don't skip across the border, because Russia's got more of them right now than they really want to deal with. Frankly, the reason they're taking all this relief aid in there is try and keep those people in Ukraine
where they're at. Yeah.
Please, we don't have any more room for you. But we'll bring you some blankets, we'll bring you some food, we'll bring you some generators, whatever you need to survive. But please stay home. If they came under attack, I suspect that probably would be the match that lit the fire.
It very well could be. And my point is this. Iraq, Syria, Libya, Afghanistan, North Africa, the stuff that's going on in West Africa, the promise of intervention in terrorist activity in Africa, these regions that we're trying to destabilize, none of them have the ability for mass death in the United States of America. None of them do. But Russia, Israel, maybe Pakistan, maybe India, definitely the UK, and a handful of other countries do. And the primary player, the number one nuclear power on this planet, is nuclear weapon player on this planet, is Russia. And we are doing everything possible in trying to intimidate and poke this bear. And so it is why my attention is focused on that situation.
All righty. Well, Charlie McGrath, thank you very much for spending a Monday evening, a Tuesday evening. I guess you're live tomorrow night, right?
I'm live tomorrow night on Rense Radio, and I'll probably be with Eric Lovely on Thursday night. So 3 nights this week.
Oh man, you're just a working stiff.
I know, and I want to make a video now. I don't know which way to go. It's not what we talked about. It could be that 32%, the big decline in personal income. Or it could be what's going on in Vietnam.
I like the trade-off between the average Joe's lost 23%. The wage earner, the guy who actually works for a living, the guy gets up at 9. He's at work at 9 o'clock in the morning. He's off at 5. The 9 to 5 guy who gets a paycheck, his income has gone down 23% since That's sorry.
Yeah. So but I think what I'll do is I'll look
at the bankers. I like that dichotomy of the comparing, the plight of average working stiff.
Let's see if we can find it real quick.
The uppers,
Let's see. Banks profit up a bank. Too big. How about too big?
Yeah, the banks are just doing great.
Banks.
Of course, they're all their revenue is from taking money out of their right pocket, but in their left, none of it's made it down to me yet. Have you seen any of it?
No, I haven't. In fact, I have to the opposite of that effect. I'm in that category that has seen their income drop. Yeah, so Let's see. Fed New York study: too big to fail banks profit on taxpayers. Let me read this headline to you. On taxpayers' back. So I'll pull some numbers and see what their profits are. Or
you know what else? Average Joe's taking a 23% hit on his annual income, but somehow the IRS is reporting that tax revenues are better than ever.
Yeah.
Gee,
yeah.
You think we might be underpaid and overtaxed?
I think that could be a bumper sticker that would actually be true.
There's your bit. I mean, that the IRS says tax revenues are through the roof. Yet average Joe's making 23% less than he made back in 2008.
I'll do some research and send you the video first.
All right, Charlie McGrath, you have a good evening. I'm cutting out of here. Good night, y'all.
Bye, Gary. Bye, y'all.